Hello, it's John Heaton, and today I'm going to review the Red Rose Speedway archive release, which I have on vinyl and CD. I don't have the deluxe set yet, it's a bit pricey. I may get it at some stage. I have the Wildlife on CD, but the vinyl didn't arrive. So here's the Red Rose Speedway CD in the same lovely format as all the rest. Double CD and faithfully reproduced booklet here with some liner notes about the bonus material and how it was remastered. And the vinyl, just so nice to have this on vinyl, on new vinyl. 180 gram vinyl. I was pretty excited when I got this on Friday. Look at that shiny cover. Compare it to my original. Where is it? I haven't got it with me, but obviously it's in much better condition, and the back cover as well, with the braille "We love you, Stevie" at the top there. The booklet is not stapled, so that's the gatefold, but the booklet is, of course, included inside, a bit like Magical Mystery Tour is these days. And there's a couple of extra photos here, not too many. It's basically the same booklet. The words are spread over 2 pages instead of 1 to make it easier to read. And these are the bonus pictures. Nice group picture there, and picture from the cover session of Paul there. Other than that, it's the same. And we've got very nice silver sleeves here with the Red Rose Speedway label, faithfully reproduced. I think it's pretty much the same as the original, which is good, because that wasn't the case with Ram. He came up with an alternative design, so I'm glad they've kept faithful to the original there. And I have to say, this remaster is pretty stunning. And I know I saw Denny Sywell on Facebook commenting about how he's been listening to these Wings reissues, and he thought the new mix had really brought out brought to life the album again. Because it has been 35 years since it was last remastered, 1993. So, badly in need of that, and they've done a great job. I was immediately impressed with the bit similar to the White Album in that you can hear the separation of the instruments a lot easier. Big barn bed straight away. You hear Denny's acoustic guitar clearer, and it's just a great mix they've done on My Love. One marvels at Denny Sywell's drumming, which was always there, I suppose, in the mix somewhere, but I hadn't really realised how stunning it was. And the same goes for Get On The Right Thing. Denny Sywell's drumming is just absolutely brilliant. All of these tracks come to life. I'm not doing a full review of this album because I've already done that on my channel, although perhaps I will read out what Karen Tyler said about this album at the time, because I think it's interesting how, of McCartney's first 4 solo albums, in general they tend to get forgotten, apart from Ram, which has got reappraised and is thought of as one of Paul's very best of his entire career, justifiably. But the other 3 have kind of been not forgotten. I mean, McCartney is not forgotten, but Wildlife and Red Rose Speedway have in some ways been neglected, and I think it's about time with these reissues that they both got reappraised, because they both have absolute gems on them, and they're not too far short of the quality of Ram. In fact, as an album, I prefer Red Rose Speedway just because it's a warmer album, it's a more loving album. Okay, it's a bit sentimental, but Ram was a little bit uptight lyrically, and that's not the case. You just get the feeling of You get a good feeling from listening to every track on this album. McCartney himself once was asked, I think it was in the late 80s, what album he looked back on with the most fondness, and he said Red Rose Speedway, because it was a very romantic period, and he has fond memories of that, and I think it's one of the reasons he's belatedly released this archive release, so I'm very happy about that. So Karen Tyler back then said, "This album occupies a curious place in the series of solo LPs made by McCartney since the first McCartney. While unsatisfactory on many levels, it nonetheless represents a considerable improvement over Wildlife, and with hindsight can be seen as a crucial event in the McCartney's recording career. Itself undistinguished, it paved a reliable highway for the next far superior album." McCartney's production is again far more painstaking than the quality of the material justifies. He'd always been more imaginative than, say, Lennon, who'd found a satisfactory sound as far back as Plastic Ono Band and stuck with it. This care can be heard on Big Barn Bed and Little Lamb Dragonfly, plus the breezy One More Kiss. A further interesting fact emerged. McCartney's often forgotten ability as a bassist was strongly emphasized to great effect on all tracks. The cynical might also observe that McCartney's credibility was further assisted by his arrest (brackets for possession of drugs) shortly after the time of issue. So that's a pretty positive review from Karen Tyler, and certainly in comparison to the dishing they gave Material World. And I think Lennon said he quite enjoyed the album at the time. In fact, in 1980 he said that the last one he listened to at Paul's was the one with the rose in his mouth. So I'm not sure if that's true, but that's what he said. The bonus material on here, Mary Had a Little Lamb, great to hear that remastered again after so long. Again, 35 years since the last remaster. Little Woman Love, the B-side of that single, Hi Hi Hi, Sea Moon, they all sound crystal clear in their new remasters. We've got the B-side of My Love, The Mess, Live at The Hague, sounding raunchier, although it's not my favourite. Live and Let Die has been remastered, I Lie Around, the B-side. And then we've got other tracks such as Night Out, Seaside Woman, the Linda track, Best Friend, a live track from Antwerp, Country Dreamer, which was the B-side of Helen Wheels, is included here, again, although it had already been on the Band on the Run archive release. Great track from Denny, I Would Only Smile, Tragedy from Paul, Thank You Darling is a kind of throwaway ditty, 1882, a live number, Jazz Street. So it's pretty interesting, and what they've done for the hardcore fans, this is really they have released the original Red Rose Speedway double album, which made it, I think, to acetate stage, because it says in the sleeve notes that these record labels were obtained from Denny Sywell, who obviously had kept them over the years. And it's fascinating to hear what this album would have been like as a double album. They've even included a smaller version of the booklet. It's kind of a draft booklet, because we've got these draft pages. So they're kind of making it out to be work in progress. That kind of thing. And it says it's been remastered, but I have to say I found this vinyl quality a little bit low in the mix, and one had to turn up the volume pretty loud to get anywhere near the quality of the CD, which wasn't the case with the Red Rose Speedway vinyl of the album. So I'm not sure if this was just done on the cheap a little bit. Well, now the question comes: does one think it should have been a double album? Well, the first things to say is there's 7 tracks on here which are not on the Red Rose Speedway archive vinyl. So you're not completely duplicating stuff by getting this one, although you are getting the whole album, but in different order. So the tracks which are not on the archive Red Rose Speedway vinyl would be Night Out, Country Dreamer, Seaside Woman, Best Friend, Mama's Little Girl, I Would Only Smile, and Tragedy. Slight peculiar sequencing in that they've started off this album with Night Out, which is a kind of raucous outtake from around the time, recorded I guess in 72. It's nothing special, and it's not a very good opener to the album. They follow that with Get on the Right Thing, Country Dreamer, Big Barn Bed, My Love Ends Side 1, Single Pigeon opens side 2, When the Night, Seaside Woman, I Lie Around the Mess ends side 2. Best Friend, which is a good live track, one thinks written about John Lennon. Why do you treat me so bad? You're the best friend a man could ever have. Quite a moving track. Open side 3 and then Loop, First Indian on the Moon, and then the medley. And then side 4, Mama's Little Girl, I Would Only Smile, One More Kiss, Tragedy, and Little Lamb Dragonfly. Well, I think I'm not really a fan of having live tracks interspersed with studio tracks, so if they were going to record Best Friend or The Mess, I would prefer if they had done studio versions of those two. Although in the latter case, I would have dropped it altogether. I think it belongs as a B-side. But Best Friend, they could have done a nice version of that in the studio, made it a bit more polished, because it's a little rough around the edges, the live version. But side 4 works pretty well here with Mama's Little Girl, which turned up later in the early 90s on a CD single, I think. And then I Would Only Smile is a glorious track from Denny, and it would have been lovely to have that on this album. I just don't know if there's enough material to make a high-quality double album. I know it was kind of the fad at the time. George had come up with a triple, John had come up with a double, so Paul thought, well, I better come up with a double myself, and he almost did, but thankfully he turned it into the single album which we know and love, which I think made it more commercial, and it was a huge hit, so maybe Paul was vindicated. But having said that, nice to see an alternative slice of history, or alternative universe. If this had been the album, I mean, it obviously would have been packaged a little better than this. This is deliberately done on the cheap, I think, to make it seem as if it's kind of work in progress. But that's okay. It's very interesting to have. Interesting to see from this book, the famous book from Luca Paresi, that Little Lamb Dragonfly was recorded in the Ram sessions with Dave Spinoza on, let me get this right, because I don't want to mislead you here. One of them had Dave Spinoza on drums, and one of them on guitar, and one of them had Hugh McCracken. And Get On the Right Thing is the one with Dave Spinoza, I'm sorry. And Paul and Linda and Dave's, Dave Spinoza. Paul, Linda, Denny Sywell, Dave Spinoza, those 4 on Get On the Right Thing. More or less a Ram outtake. Maybe they did some overdubs, I'm not sure, but nothing that I can ascertain exactly. But the other one, Little Lamb Dragonfly, Hugh McCracken is credited on guitar, and then Denny Lane is credited on backing vocals. So I think what happened is they recorded the original track for the Ram sessions, and then they did I read in this book that they did an overdub backing vocal session with Denny, and Jojo was there, Jojo Lane, and it was very moving because the song was about one of the lambs on Paul's farm who'd passed away. And I think they improved the track by making it this kind of glorious vocal showpiece for the band. And one thing I will say about Red Rose Speedway, and to a lesser extent Wildlife, is you're getting that Wings harmony and that superb combination of Linda McCartney and Denny Lane. Their voices really go well together, and one thinks of Live and Let Die, the backing vocals. You know you did, you know you did, you know you did, as one great example. But it's all over Red Rose Speedway. It's all over Big Barn Bed. It's all over Hold Me Tight. And it would be all over their career right up until Back to the Egg. Linda and Denny, superb vocal team. So this is Red Rose Speedway in dire need of reappraisal, and I'm going to give it the solid thumbs up, as I always do. And thank you for watching. See you next time.